Kas see on valmis? Kas valmistu tulevad? Mõtle maha. Ma täitsa siin näen.
Good evening and very warm welcome on behalf of Astonishing Evenings. My name is Silver Tango. I'm one of the founders of Astonishing Evenings and also chief editor of Estonian World online magazine. Very glad that you could come tonight here. A little bit less than usual, but I suppose some fears about the coronavirus crisis play its part here. And perhaps the weather is also not the best, but we had a beautiful summer. We were also, I say a few words about the Astonishing Evenings for those people who are here for the first time and also people who follow us through online streams. Tonight Estonian World is streaming the event. It's also available on Astonishing Evenings Facebook page. And also we are glad that Estonian newspaper Postimees is our partner tonight, so they are also streaming the event. So a few words about the Astonishing Evenings. We started for like-minded individuals, me, Reelika, Nele and Lene. 3 years ago, we all lived abroad at some point in our lives, and we came back to Estonia and we missed type of international events where people from other countries and Estonians could meet and mingle. So far, we've had 21 events on very different topics, on culture, politics, gender equality, racism, diversity, education, etc. Tonight's event is about international students in Estonia. Probably most of you, or those who are here at least, already know that it's becoming a big topic in Estonian society, partly because of the political change that happened last year. Current government includes at least one party that is against non-EU students, and this is what we're going to discuss tonight. Just Estonian World and Helsinki Creative City are supporters of this event. A few words also about them. And also it's obviously advisable to follow our future events on our Facebook page, Astonishing Evenings. But tonight's event, and also before I forget, of course, very important that tonight's event is obviously organized in collaboration with the Federation of Estonian Student Unions. They are also supporting this event, and they have had a lot of great input into the topics. But tonight's event is moderated by Reelika, my colleague here. She is also one of the founders of Astonishing Evenings. Like we all, Reelika also lived abroad at some point in Germany many years, came back to Estonia, has worked for startups, is a very talented writer as well. She was the first contributor at Estonian World, so we worked together for 8 years. And with that, I'm handing over to Reelika, and she will tell you more about tonight's event. Thank you.
Thank you, Silver. So welcome everyone tonight. I will make a brief introduction and then introduce our first speaker. But first of all, please raise your hand if you are an international student or if you've ever been one. Okay, quite a lot, thank you. At least over the half. So the current situation in Estonia is that Estonia does welcome an increasing amount of foreign or international students every year. Last year, over 5,500 people, students of higher education, were from outside of Estonia, which is compared to 10 years ago when I was a student as well, has increased more than 5-fold. And although you can imagine Estonia is not the most popular student destination in Europe, it's still quite average. And from the international students themselves, currently around 62% actually come from countries outside of EU, so European Union. And this rapid increase in numbers of international students has created some controversy now. And based on an alleged potential threat to national security, the Estonian Ministry of Interior has created a draft legislation that intends to curb the rights of students from outside of the European Union due to the COVID-19 crisis. This draft will be discussed in the Parliament in the beginning of September, which is the reason we are having this event today, the last day of August. The act is called Aliens Act and the amending the Study Allowances and Student Loans Act. So we will discuss it a little bit further during the panel discussion. We have someone from the Isamaa party as well, so you can all ask questions. Very shortly, this act aims to restrict the employment of international students studying in Estonia, and granting long-term visas to foreign students' families, also to end the need-based study allowance and tighten the rules regarding the post-study stay in Estonia. So we'll go into more details later. The event will be opened by Eero Loonurm, who will give us a great overview of the state of affairs. So Eero has been active in internationalization of higher education for almost 15 years. Fun fact, we also went to Tallinn University together over 15 years ago. And his responsibilities in the Estonian Education and Youth Authority include the development and execution of the National Higher Education Marketing Strategy for Study in Estonia program, and also representing Estonia in communications related working groups on the state and also on the European level. Eero is also the marketing and communications expert in promoting Europe as a studies destination for the European Commission project Study in Europe, so both Estonia and Europe. And Eero will come and talk about the results from the Global Survey International Student Barometer and also the student experience in Estonia, arrival, studying, living here, and economic impact. And he will also compare the Estonian experience with the global one and discuss the internationalization plans for the period of 2021 to 27. Here we go, Eero.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Okay, let me see, I'm here on the screen. I try to be on this side. Good evening, everyone. As Reelika introduced, my name is Eero. I worked until the 31st of July in the foundation called Archimedes Foundation, Sihtasutus Archimedes. But there is a totally new governmental structure established from the 1st of August, which means that now the official body in Estonian is Haridus- ja Noorteamet, in English, Education and Youth Authority. I'm going to have a lot of information for you, so stay focused. It's the last day of summer. I think it's the perfect day to have a look at the previous academic year, 2019-2020. And on top of that, we will have a look what we have done during the last 10 years when it comes to higher education and international marketing. Then I think you can connect later on all the bits and pieces, what we have done as a country so far during the last 10 plus years and what the situation is right now. And then after my presentation, then we have a wonderful debate about what will happen in the future. So stay focused. There is a lot of information coming up. First of all, yes, this is the timeline now. 5,528 international degree students. Whatever I'm saying here about international students, then 99% sure it is that I'm going to talk about international degree students. On top of that, we have around 1,500 or even more exchange students in the country. But 5,528 is the official number from the last year. Just a little bit, I'm going back. So what we have done during the last 5 years. This is the higher education marketing strategy, that main key points, how we have got to this situation, how we are. Together with the universities, we have chosen and analyzed the target markets. We have analyzed what we do in the target markets. We have discussed together with the universities which should be the services for international students. And of course, we have tried to grow and build our own competence when it comes to international education marketing. These are our universities with who we deal most of all, because these are the universities that have at least one degree program in English. We have many more, but all of them in Estonia, they are not teaching a full program in English. These are the 10 ones that are our main stakeholders. The last two, both healthcare colleges, they have joined us the previous academic year when they both opened a new study program in English. So what do we do with our universities? We do a lot of things together. Basically, we do everything together. We see what we are going to do in different markets. The whole student journey actually begins from, let's say, thousands of kilometers away from us, and it begins from our embassy, or we have the consular representation. Because everything begins with a visa or the temporary residence permit. So when it comes to inviting an international student here, then we depend a lot on our capacity of having embassies all over the world. And as you know, most likely, especially the degree students who have come here, you know very well that we have very few embassies all over the world. So it's kind of a miracle that you have arrived here, especially if you come from thousands of kilometers away from us. So this is just a short list of different activities that we do together with the universities, because it's not only about recruitment, it's also about visibility, awareness, online marketing, being present in the recruitment fairs, being present in the business-to-business fairs, dealing with the alumni, etc., etc. Just a couple of keywords. And of course, we use the best university admission system in the world. Dream Apply is an Estonian company, and this is, although I might seem biased, of course, I'm Estonian, it's an Estonian company, but this is so far the best university admission system in the world, and luckily we are using it. And this has made the student journey to Estonia a lot more easier compared to, let's say, 10 years ago. This is just a group of people, let's say. Anyway, it's not only the country here, like, or let's say the Education and Youth Authority, or the people working for the government. These are actually people who work in the universities, in the admission departments, in the marketing departments, in the international relations departments, international cooperation departments. So all of them are basically, we call them our network and our circle of internationalization. And this is one of the classical business-to-business fairs, where thousands of people from all over the world come together to build new relationships. The first strategy from 2006 to 2015, this was even more comprehensive than the current one. This was the general higher education internationalization strategy. And World Bank Group and Boston College have said that this strategy from 2006 to 2015 was one of the best they have ever seen. With the minimum resources, the maximum result. Let's say like that. Because to start from zero, it's pretty difficult. And as you saw from the timeline, the beginning was the most difficult one, when we had just a 3-digit number of international degree students. From 900, as Relik already said, we have managed to grow it to more than 5,000 international degree students. The second point now, so what do the results of the International Student Barometer say? What it is in general, International Student Barometer is a survey, global survey, the biggest one in the world. And these are more or less the same questions to international students who are studying let's say, away from their home country in another country. And there were more than almost 180,000 international degree students were international degree and exchange students were answering that question. iGraduate, it's the company's name. It's a British-Dutch company. And we have decided that during the last 10, 11, 12 years, we have participated in that survey 5 times. Because we want to know the benchmarking and we want to know what is the situation of Estonian universities compared to the global, let's say, competitors, let's say like that, because it's a huge competitive arena. So maybe there are even students here who managed to answer that questionnaire. It was open from November to December. And there are lots of questions. Mostly they are focusing on arrival, learning, living, and support. But there are many other questions too. The Estonian version also involved the questions about finances, because we wanted to know how much the international students spend in Estonia. Because this has not been done before on such a large scale. There were almost 2,000 international students who study in Estonia and who answered that questionnaire. This is a really good result. And again, maybe to compare, there were altogether 215 universities, 30 universities from the world top 100, and more than half of the universities are inside the top 500 rankings. So the most common rankings, if you are in the education field, are Times Higher Education, then QS, and also Shanghai Jiaotong ranking. So these are the biggest rankings, and there were really good universities whose students answered the questionnaire. So you can see a couple of examples here, like Oxford, Cambridge, and Peking and Queensland, and from Europe there were many like Amsterdam and Leiden, and etc., etc. So this was very, very interesting for us to see what the international students really think about Estonia. Okay, as I said, 179,000 respondents on the global level, and almost 2,000 from the Estonian, from Estonia. So it could have been 6,200, but of course, let's face it, let's say we can't expect that we have the response rate of 100%. Compared to the global level, we had a better result. So let's say that 2,000 respondents is a really good sample. Nationality breakdown. So I haven't mentioned these basic facts, like most of you would know, which are the top sending countries who send international students to Estonia, etc., etc. But here, especially on the right, when it comes to degree students, because non-EU students are mostly degree students. The European ones here, Finland, yes, is the #1 sending country, but all the other countries are mostly sending exchange students to Estonia. Mostly Erasmus Plus program. But yep, these are the countries. Out of these top 10, most likely you know, but our biggest sending country is Finland, second biggest is Russia, and then come after that Nigeria, Ukraine, Turkey, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Iran, Georgia, China, US, etc. So in the top 10 of the international degree students, there is only one European Union country, and this is Finland. And this is nothing very peculiar here, because the same situation is everywhere when we look at our neighboring countries. Latvia, Finland, Sweden, in all these countries, the dominating sending countries are non-EU countries. For example, in Latvia, there are students who come from Uzbekistan and India. In Finland, there are a lot of students coming from China and Vietnam, etc. So study level breakdown, most of the respondents were studying on the master's level. On the global level, they were more from the bachelor's degree level. And in general, this is also reflecting the whole student body in general in Estonia. We have the majority we have on the master's degree level. Around 10% of the students are PhD, and 40% are more or less doing their bachelor degree. This is the very short summary of the whole barometer. But it's going to be much more interesting when we look at the results later on. The main reason why international students are coming here is because of the future career impact. 95% of the degree students and exchange students who come here, they say that this is the reason number one why they have chosen this country on the global map. Amongst all the 200 countries, they have found Estonia on the map, and they have come here because of the future career impact. The second main reason were about the cost of study and cost of living, because it makes sense, because the main reason is about the future career impact, and then you have a look on the financial topics. Recommendation: 82% of the international students who are here, they would actively encourage, or if asked, they would actively encourage people to apply. Value for money was rated better than the global benchmark, and the overall satisfaction was the best amongst the PhD students and non-EU countries like Ukraine, Nigeria, and Russia. And we will see that slide afterwards too, but one of the fields where we are underperforming is about the employability, career advice, and work experience. These are the most critical topics in that sense, but let's face it, 5 or even 10 years ago, these topics were even more critical. Let's say we have improved a lot during the last 10 years. The Net Promoter Score, this has better results than on the global level. As you can see, 42% would be the active promoters. What it means basically that the questions, when they answered, they mostly answered 9 or 10 on the 10-point level. And on the global level, it's 36%. That's a really interesting slide. I hope you can see, but if not, I will repeat couple of results from here. So as you can see, the bottom number, which is written on with white on back there, down there, it's these are the Estonian results, and written with purple, these are the results on the global level. So as you can see, both on the global level and in Estonia, the main reason why students go to study abroad are about the future career impact. The second reason why students come to Estonia are the specific course title and the cost of study, and then cost of living, institution reputation, and so on. On the global level, the results are kind of similar. But as you can see, the last one here, institution scholarship or bursary, let's say that 85% of the students who come here, they are interested in the institutional scholarship opportunities. On the global level, it's 77%, which means that yes, the students who come here, they are more interested in the scholarship opportunities compared to the global level. But of course, if you remember which universities I mentioned in the second slide, beginning from Oxford, ending up with Queensland and Monash, yes, of course, there is a difference in that sense. If you go to Oxford and if you go to study PhD, then most likely you would get a scholarship, or if you go to the master's degree, there is a very big chance that you will also get a scholarship there. But somehow, yes, it has traditionally been that scholarship is a very important topic for Estonia. Top 10 influencers. This we could also talk about here a couple of hours. But what are the main reasons or the main influencers, how the international students end up here in Estonia? The university website is a really important tool. 50% of the students who have come here, they say that if the university website is good, then there is a pretty good chance that they would end up clicking on the second page and the third page and fourth page and so on. On the global level, it's not so important. Friends, very important. Peer-to-peer, kind of network marketing, let's say like that. Current students, very important. So again, the white number means that this is the statistics about the students in Estonia, and the purple one is about the global one. But there is one very important influence missing here, which in Estonia showed the result 6%, but on the global level it was more than 30%. You can think a little bit, which is, I think, the second biggest influencer on the global level. for the international students. You can just think a little bit, and the result will be here. Number 33, as you can see on the right, is the education agent. Education agents or the consultancies. The students who come to Estonia are usually very independent. They manage everything themselves. They check what are the admission requirements, they see what they need to do the exams themselves, they find all the information online. No issues at all. But on the global level, as you can see, the 19 countries that participated, there were US, Canada, Australia, UK, Ireland, many other countries, China, and basically when we look at the global level, every third student is going to study abroad with the help of an education agent or a consultancy, whatever we call that. So this is something that we should look at in the future. But yes, the Estonian situation is totally different. Only 6% of the students who have come here, they have consulted education agents, organizations, companies, let's call them consultancies. But in general, I'm also glad that there is in the middle host country government advisory service. On the global level, it's 5%. For Estonia, it's 16%, which means that study in Estonia is a pretty important channel for the future international students, either exchange or either the degree students. And the national and promotion systems on the global level are not so, let's say, relevant for the future students. So yep, this is a real science behind how international students go from country A to country B, and what is all there in between. Besides that, I must say that our universities are really good when it comes to global recruitment. With the minimum resources, the maximum results, and what they do in the few selected markets, and how all the departments, they are really working hard when it comes to internationalization. Now the 4 key topics, actually 5. The 4: arrival, living, learning, and the support system. These are the ones that I'm going to introduce now as the next slides. And the 5th one is going to be about the economic impact. And thanks to that survey, we have managed to calculate what is really the economic impact of international students who are studying here in Estonia, especially when it comes to the living costs and accommodation. So the arrival. When it comes to the arrival services, our universities are, compared to the global level, they are doing better. I hope you can now see, but anyway, I will read it too. So on average, the arrival overall, 91% of the international degree students who have come here are satisfied. On the global level, the percentage is 88%. Especially satisfied they are with the topics like pre-arrival info, then also the finance office, registration to the subjects, formal welcome, accommodation office, meeting staff, etc. And the worst one here, as you can see on the bottom, this is called the host friend. And year by year, anyway, when it comes to, analyzing the results, it seems to me that the more international students we have, the less opportunities we have to approach individually to the international students. When we had fewer students, then it was easier to deal with them when it comes to the institutes, faculties, student organizations, and things like that. But now, as there are more and more and more, of course, we can't pay so much individual attention anymore. This is my conclusion to the whole situation, because I see that just the numbers have grown bigger, and I think here is the case. And clubs and societies introduction, which also means that not everyone can actively participate in the student organizations, which we have in every university. Before, it was easier, less competition, let's say like that, but now there is much more competition. So this is the comparison to the global level. In general, we are more or less doing everywhere better than on the global level. But again, there are some topics here which are sometimes seasonal. because, for example, here the accommodation condition, it shows that Estonian result is 75%, global level is 80%, but it depends again. Let's say, I remember that one year one of the student accommodation, student residences was being renovated, which meant that the results were much worse than they should have been. And now we compare the last 4 international student barometers, and you can see like which topics have become worse. So compared to 2011 and 2019. So something has happened with a topic called bank account. And again, this is the general approach. For example, there are many fields in Estonia that have issues with opening a bank account for the third country individual. And compared to 2011, this satisfaction rate has dropped a lot. Host friends, again, from 75 to 63. Again, there is more competition. We can't have an Estonian host friend, all of you, although it could be actually easily doable, but still. Accommodation condition, so it's, let's say, sometimes here it's 85, 80, 81, 75. It seems to me that basically every second or third year there are some student residences which are being renovated, and there are some bigger issues. Because in general, the situation is not actually so bad that it would be worse than the global average. And where we have become better is study sense, registration, meeting staff, accommodation office, other friends. Other friends means that there are other students from different countries all over the world. The more students there are, the bigger the chance is to get more international friends. Learning. 86% is the satisfaction rate, and on the global level it's 87%. I would say that we are not doing so bad when it comes to the learning, but the topics that are taking our results down is not on that slide. On that slide we are more or less on the same level as the global level is. But here, the last 3 topics. Employability, careers advice and work experience. If you analyze, then some of these topics, they are not directly, they have got nothing to do with the academic excellence of the universities. Employability is connected to the activities that you do after graduation. Work experience is also outside of the classroom. Careers advice is also outside of the classroom. But for the global level, for the global internationalization service, these 3 topics are connected with learning. And these 3 are taking our academic excellence down, most of all. And this has always been like that during the last 10 years when it comes to that survey. Somehow I would say that that's not fair. That's not fair. We have really fantastic professors and they are doing really good work. But for the global level, for them, employability, careers advice and work experience are connected to learning satisfaction. Again, I will go through here. The facilities, we are doing well. Labs, learning spaces, virtual learning, we are doing better compared to the global average. And year on year. So when it comes to learning, everything has improved except class size. Again, this makes sense, right? If there are more people, then there is less space in the classrooms. So, yep, it is worse. It's the only thing that has decreased. But otherwise, everything has improved, especially the careers advice. Although, as I said, it's one of our disadvantages here. But still, from 54% to 64%, we have improved, but we should improve even more and more. Living. Again, more or less the same results compared to the global level. Here, basically everything is green. Accommodation cost, finding accommodation, financial support, everything is much better than compared to the global level. But again, it makes sense. Again, if you remember with who we are comparing ourselves, especially to really expensive countries, then of course accommodation cost is having a better result here. And living costs, of course. And host friends. This is one, again, the when it comes to social life and living and doing things outside of the classroom, then again, the more and more students we have, the more we need to focus actually in the future how to make two ends come together, the local student and the international student. Day-to-day life, again, topics where we are doing pretty well compared to the global level. So if everything is green on the, okay, I'm standing in front of it, but if everything is green, then it means that we are doing better than the global level. And again, the global comparison of the last 4 surveys. So again, host friends and social facilities, these are the topics that have gone worse during the last 4 surveys. But earning money, from 36% to 58%, that's a huge growth. Economic impact, that's now one of the interesting parts that where we have very interesting numbers if somebody is into math. So the accommodation costs compared to the global and the Estonians. The purple one here means that this is 7% of the international students spend less than 200 euros per month for accommodation. But, 7% spend over 500 euros. 39% spend less than 200, 26 spend between 200 and 300. So compared to the global level, yes, our costs are a totally different world, much smaller. When we calculate that every international student is spending 250 euros on accommodation monthly, and if we do really conservative calculations, we are not calculating 12 months. We would calculate, let's say, 10 months. We would calculate not all the international students, and we take the coefficient there from a little bit smaller rate from the exchange students. Then I would say that the last academic year on accommodation, the international students left here 15 million euros, mostly to Tallinn and Tartu, of course. But yes, 15 million only when it comes to accommodation. Living costs, again, I will show you that slide. This is much easier. 47% spend at least 300 euros per month. This means food and drinks, traveling inside Estonia, going to visit different counties, going out, etc. 300 euros per month is more or less the average, but there are also people who spend at least 500 euros per month. And when we calculate and multiply of all the students' international degree and exchange, we would get 18 million euros the last academic year. Have friends or family come over to visit you. So in that sense, this is, again, I have to do here really conservative calculations, because when we opened the survey, it was in November. Most of the students, I think, from the first year students, they hadn't managed to invite anybody over by that time. So from these people who said no, most of them are the first year students. But otherwise, again, we calculated really conservatively here. For example, on a regular basis, I think we multiplied with 2. We didn't ask how many guests did you receive. Maybe somebody has a family of 5 people, parents and brothers and sisters, but we calculated that we multiplied only with 1. So we managed to calculate that it would be at least 2 million euros that come to Estonian economy because of international students' guests. And this is really, really, really conservative. When we calculate all these millions together, we would say that the last academic year brought to Estonian economy netto 35 million euros. Accommodation, living costs, and the cost made by guests. And it doesn't include the aviation, for example, when somebody was coming with a flight to Estonia, or even with a bus or with a ferry. I don't know if anybody knows how to do it, or which would be the most efficient way how to calculate these costs, because some countries can do it, but they also take into account the national airways or companies like that. And the tuition fees, we didn't touch the tuition fees at all. These begin from 1,000 euros, or if you get a scholarship, but they end up with 12,000 euros per year. 12,000 euros would be medicine in the University of Tartu. But in general, one study program would be between 3,000 and 4,000 euros per year. Well-being. Yes, in general, if you see, we are doing well. Our students are showing better results than on the global level, but again, the host friends. We somehow have to boost the contact between the local students and the international students. And I think this would be one of the key topics for the next program period, let's say beginning from 2021. Support. Again, in general, we are doing pretty well. I wouldn't highlight anything too specific here. Student advisory is 3% lower than the global level. But again, finance office and library service are doing better compared to the global level. Club societies, as I mentioned before, this has gone worse. But career service has improved. Personal tutors has improved. IT support, this has improved. And some remarks. Employability. We have been thinking a lot for the last years. This is what our strategy is about of the last 5 years. And we are really happy if the students can find a job after graduating here in Estonia. The situation 10 years ago was totally different. Luckily now we have more and more opportunities for the graduates here. Careers advice and career guidance should also be improved. Net promoter score, PhD students are promoting most of all, which is a really nice result. And much more. The students here promote the universities much more than on average on the global level. That's it. That was now very quick, a lot of slides, and hopefully you got a lot of new information. But the main thing is that international students, we have been working very hard during the last 12 years in order to make Estonia more international. And I hope it will continue to be like that. I really hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Eero. We have around 10 minutes to take some questions for Eero, so we have our team members running around the room. If you have a question, just raise your hand, introduce yourself really quickly, who you are and where you're from, and try to be as precise as possible with the question.
Piret Kuusik from Estonia. Have you done any calculations on, depending how much you let foreign students to work, then how much that will bring in terms of taxes to Estonian economy? And just a comment, employability is also important for the Estonian students, so in that sense that will have an overall benefit not only to international students. Thanks.
The first question, yes, I didn't mention that. Last December, we calculated the economic impact from the labor market. And we found out that the academic year 2018-2019, the students who were studying at that time, they brought with taxes to Estonian economy 8 million euros. And the graduates from the year 2017-2018, who had been in our labor market in 2018-19, they brought more than 2 million. So in general, 10 million euros came to taxes, only taxes, came to our economy thanks to international students. And we are going to repeat that survey. Of course, the results, I'm afraid, will be totally different now. I think the number will be much smaller, but we are very curious to know how much the COVID has affected the situation and all the other topics that I think you are very, very well aware of the situation of this academic year. But we will do the calculations again, and hopefully in October, November, we will see the results from this academic year.
Hi, my name is Nikki Walker, and I'm from Canada. Nice to meet you. I'm an educator, and I educate international students. Just two questions, just for clarification. What were the target markets when you were doing your marketing? What were they specifically? And did you reach the numbers that you were trying to reach? And the other question that I have is, can you define career impact? Throughout the presentation, you're talking about career impact, but there's no real definition to what that means. What does career impact mean from the beginning of the presentation?
There were now lots of questions. The first one was about target markets, right? Yes, we chose the target markets together with our universities. The main criteria was about our consular services. So all these countries where we have the embassies. Russia, China, let's say 10 years ago, Russia, China, and then Turkey, Ukraine, and also Georgia, a little bit US, and is there something I'm forgetting now? But more or less these countries. And from 2015, China became less important, and we replaced it with India. So the top countries where we do the recruitment are India, Russia, Finland, of course, our neighboring country, but yeah, the EU country, and Ukraine. And a little bit less Georgia, but we are also testing some other markets, beginning from Kazakhstan, ending up with Japan. The second question now was about the future career impact. In that sense, that the education that you get here, this would open the doors for you in the future after graduation, wherever you go. Is it in Estonia? Is it in your home country? Is it on the global level? Yep.
Hi, David from the US. So a lot of the statistics that you were showing, or all of them I should say, is Estonia versus the global world, right? Is there any similarities or any like noticeable difference between Estonia and, let's say, Latvia and Lithuania?
Unfortunately, we paid a lot to participate in that survey. So these results are not visible on Google or wherever. So if I get along very well with some of our neighbors, then I get to know that what the Latvians are doing and so on. But in general, it was a really expensive thing. So this is like a competitive edge in that sense, and the countries are not sharing the results. But in general, let's say off the record, anyway, Latvians are our really good neighbors, and we are following and helping each other a lot. But our results were better than the Latvian ones. But Latvians were participating in that survey for the first time ever in 2019. So we have been dealing with all the issues and all the topics here from 2009 already. And we have been saying, and all the universities know that, okay, when we see these results, what should be our next direction, where do we go, and etc. So, and Lithuania did not participate there. So only 19 countries were participating. And let's face it, these are the countries that have, and the universities that have money. Yes, because it's an expensive survey.
Yeah, one more.
Hi, my name is Patrick. I'm from Canada as well.
Nice to meet you.
My question is, politically, this issue seems to, part of what this is centered around has been international students who come to start a master's degree and then transition to the workforce and abandon their degree program. As a manager in Estonia, I haven't seen that with any of my employees. Do you have any measurement of abandonment rates among international students who then subsequently remain in the country?
Yes, we have the results from last year. We see that roughly around 40 to 50% of the graduates stay here. But these are only these people who we can track, which means that anyway we have a lot of development we need to do with the ministry regarding tracking, because these are the students whose Estonian ID was registered into the information system. The ones who were not, we didn't look at them at all. But in general, when it comes to IT students, some statistics say that more than 70% stay working here. When it comes to some other fields, basically almost 0% stay here. And but in general, it should be 40 to 50. Some statistics say that it's around 30, and our official criteria was that we would be happy if 30% of the masters and PhD graduates would stay here.
Anyone else? Just one more.
Very good.
Hello, Eero. I'm Jonathan from Estonia. So my question would be, I'm glad there was already a question about the markets that have been picked before, but talking to some, not only politicians, but also people working in the ministries, there's been, in the last few years, this kind of, it's come as a shock to them. Oh my God, the number of international students from India and places we've been marketing to has increased. This is not what we actually wanted, which is a good example of how the state doesn't actually always know what it's actually doing. But what was the justification for targeting these countries when a lot of the rhetoric today is that no, we want international students from inside the European Union, with like this assumption that EU students are somehow more valuable than people from outside the EU. So having experienced this, why did we target the countries that we did? And do you agree that EU students are somehow more valuable than non-EU students? Thank you.
I still think that targeting students from all over the world, this is how we should continue. And there is no difference in between the passport, like who has, I don't know, more European passport or less European passport. I think that time goes by. We learn from the mistakes. We learn from other countries what they are doing, and etc. I think the whole situation is temporary, and I would say that if we have discussed and agreed on in 2015 that these are the countries where we are more active, the embassies there agree with us. They are our main cooperation partners in that sense, because the students go to the embassy before coming here. So in that sense, I think there is a lot of miscommunication in there. And regarding the, let's say, the partner organizations, the big ones and from different ministries, there are also different stakeholders inside one stakeholder. There is a stakeholder who says, yes, we have to deal with the non-EU students and deal with their integration and their adaptation. And then the other department there says, like, maybe we should be more attractive for the European students. So sometimes there are coming, let's say, mixed signals from the same institution. But I hope so. And together with the Federation of Estonian Student Unions help, hopefully we can look with, let's say, bright, hopefully we have bright future, and hopefully we can clarify this miscommunication that has been around during the last, let's say, during the last year. Because in general, the world is, I don't know, the world is really a small place. So in general, I would say that is it a Colombian student or a student from Latvia, New Zealand or Iran, let's say if the students want to come to Estonia, then we should be open for them and we should welcome them, regardless the passport.
Thank you so much. Let's end this on a positive note for now. Thank you, Eero.
Thank you.
We will have a small break now for about 10 minutes. The bar is open if you wish. And after the break, we will have a small surprise feature for you. So be back in around 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
ma korra. So we're back from the break. Thank you very much. And what's talking about a topic without the actual experiences? We have one foreign international student joining us at the panel discussion today as well. But together, and again, thank you so much for the great help to the Estonian Federation of Student Unions. We interviewed 6 international students from all around the world who have already studied in Estonia. So they will tell us a little bit more why they came here, why did they choose Estonia, what was their experience. And we put together a really nice video as a surprise. So after that we will continue with the panel discussion. Enjoy.
students. And actually the EU Council said that actually we should ensure the mobility of foreign students. So it was not a surprise. But the surprise came from Caltech decision, and maybe the government didn't really make it clear that they're willing to bring international students in. They said they would send us an official communication, and they never did. And they told us you have to start applying again on December, which doesn't make sense because we should be accepted. And of course the tuition waiver is off, the scholarship is off. So to be honest, I won't put that in.
So now we'll start with the panel discussion. We have 4 participants here. I will be moderating the discussion, and we will definitely have it with very close cooperation with the audience, so that's you. So please raise your hand as soon as you have a question. I will try to be very fair and take some of our own prepared questions, and then in turn from you as well. So as soon as our team members see a raised hand, they will come with a mic as well. Thank you. It's comfy. So let's start by introducing our panelists today. So the first one is Karl-Sander Kase, starting from that side. Karl-Sander is the communications director of the political party Isamaa, who is currently in the coalition in the government, and also chairman of the Isamaa youth organization. And Karl-Sander will be advocating for moderation and a little bit more conservative worldview on the issue of international students. Karl-Sander thinks that Estonia's higher education does need international students, but at the same time it is important to keep in mind other serious concerns regarding integration and state priorities. So we will hear some interesting opinions from him, I'm sure. Next one is Elari Pilliroog. Elari is a chairperson of the board of Federation of Estonian Student Unions. So she knows all about the joys and sorrows of students, both international and Estonian. And in addition to leading the largest student representative organization in Estonia, Elari is also active in higher education policies and acquiring a master's degree in law at the University of Tartu. Going further, we have Daniele Monticelli. Daniele has a PhD in semiotics from the University of Tartu and also doing postdoctoral studies in the University of Yale. Daniele is currently a professor at Tallinn University where he teaches courses in Estonian, English and Italian and supervises also Estonian as well as international students. His fields of research include translation studies, literary theory, semiotics and contemporary critical theory. And Daniela is the author of several publications on these topics already and also regularly publishes literary, cultural and political essays in Estonian cultural journals and newspapers. So you already might have read something from him. Last but not least, we have Anna that you might recognize from the video. She's from Ukraine and moved to Estonia a year ago to pursue a degree in filmmaking in the BFM, Baltic Film and Media School. Anna thinks her experience has been really great so far and she's looking forward to staying in Estonia and is very excited about the opportunities that may come in the future. And Anna would like to emphasize she's on this panel on behalf of international students like herself and also on behalf of her friends who have friends and potential students who have suffered due to the COVID-19 crisis and who could not make it to Estonia for this academic year. Okay, thank you all for participating one more time. So we already mentioned the issue with the legislation that legislation draft that will be going starting in September. So since we have a member straight here, could you maybe give us an overview? There have been a lot of, so to say, also maybe miscommunication about this new legislation draft. Can you, Karl Sander, give us an overview? What is still on the table regarding this law? What has been already put off the table, so to say? What is the current state of affairs with this new legislation draft regarding international students?
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, seems good. As said, I work in the Parliament of Estonia, and in this black and white age, it's actually quite disturbing. I mean, for example, TalTech, they started a huge project in the beginning of this year, I think, was this Eurotech Engineering University across the whole of EU, including French, Denmark and Swiss universities. And after their decision to, let's say, postpone admission of foreign students, I saw social media posts blaming them of xenophobia, racism, etc. But TalTech was actually a university who pushed for ease of legislation back in maybe 6 years ago. So that's the age we are in. And with the legislation, that's the same issue. For example, the process of turning something into a law. The social minister can come to the government today and say the pensions will be 2,000 euros from next year. That doesn't mean that a law has been passed. So when the Minister of Interior proposes 7 things, one was this average salary demand, one was working hour limits for country nationals, then limits on whether or not you can bring your family right now or in 2 years, etc., then that doesn't mean there has been a law, and that will be the new order. So right now, as of today, I might say thanks to Isama and also the Ministry of Education, 2 things are off the table, which is the working hours limit for third country nationals, and also this average salary gap, which has been thrown around for the past maybe 5 or 6 years anyway. And the rest will find out in autumn how it will go, but the point is that nothing is yet done, and there's quite difficulty in finding solutions that will suit everyone, including us.
So that's why we're having this discussion, to have at least a small impact on the matter, and to have different persons expressing their opinion here. So very shortly, a brief overview that we haven't mentioned yet for those of you who don't know it, the concern with the TALTEC, which is not directly connected to the amendment, the legislation draft, but around the 23rd of July, TALTEC, formerly known as Tallinn Technical University, announced that they would not be accepting bachelor and master students if they are traveling from a third country, which means outside of EU, which had a high risk of the virus, or also unreliable statistics, which of course, as you can imagine, has caused a very, very big outrage among the students who were either first-year students or were planning to continue their studies in TALTEC. And there has been a petition launched by these students. Some of them were talking about it already on the video. And of course, this has affected their life greatly. Some of them have left their jobs, apartments, and were preparing to come to Estonia. And slightly over 300 students were affected directly. So what is, in general, your opinion on this matter? So I've been talking to a few of my friends who are lecturers at other universities. As we know, Tallinn University was considering something similar but did not follow through. Neither did Tartu, so the international students from all countries are still welcome there. And of course, they have to follow the quarantine rules, which are, so to say, there by the government. And since we already have the 31st of August, talking to, like I said, from people with from different universities before this event, most of these international students have come to Estonia in the beginning of August already. They have followed the quarantine. They know these restrictions very well, as they are worldwide. So my question to all of you would be maybe, what are, first of all, your opinions on this matter? What could, since we don't have anybody representing TALTEC, what could have been done better, communicated better? What do you think? Maybe let's start with Ellery.
Yeah, we, first of all, hello to everyone online and here. We, I think, were one of the first ones to be hit with the massive letters and concerns that actually came from the must or would have been students. They were actually accepted but not immatriculated to the school. But I think what the first initial response was that there was a lot of confusion. The decision was not actually communicated by the university that well. It came in at such a late time. Basically, everyone was already doing their, preparations for coming here, and I think certainly that the part of outside of EU was a concern as well. There was a part that we have European countries that the risk of COVID or the data shows a much higher risk than any other country outside of EU. So that was, I think, something that really bothered a lot of people. So the first response was definitely sadness, anger. I don't know, it was really heartbreaking to hear the stories. Actually, we interviewed a couple, but we heard from much more people, and to hear that they had sold their cars or something else to come here to actually give something to our higher education system, and not getting here is definitely something heartbreaking, I think.
Daniela, how does it look from the Tallinn University side?
Yes, I would say generally from the university side. First of all, about the amendment of legislation about it. So yeah, you are very diplomatic, so of course it's a miscommunication. I won't be so diplomatic. It is of course a part of a xenophobic agenda of a Minister of Interior. We all know it very well. It's very good that the coalition partner could kind of change a bit of that draft. Let's hope about that. But I want to be clear on this point that we will very strongly oppose any attempt to reduce the rights of foreign students by the part of the government. So that, I think it's very clear from the university side. This is one thing. The other thing is the Taltech and this story. It is very related with this, because what we saw in spring, the university were trying all the time to get clear information from the government about what to do with foreign students. And then what we had was always no and or confusions. And only a couple of weeks before admission, so we had this bit more of information about what we should do with foreign students. Now, what happened was that Taltech and Tallinn University, they decided that they don't have simply the resources to warrant all these kind of things. So the quarantine, separate rooms for coming students, and these things that, these strange things that the statistics, it comes from a Minister of Interior. The statistics are not reliable of third countries. So what does it mean? I mean, it's strange. And then we were in a kind of forced situation. So I mean, it would have been a very good procedure by the part of the government for me if there are these strict rules, and then we give some resources to the university in order to apply these rules, but nothing came. So, but for me, it is really clear that, I mean, the COVID emergency was exploited by the government to foster this xenophobic agenda against foreign students. So that, and the universities, I mean, they try to react in a way. We could, at Tallinn University, we have now 150 foreign students that manage, new foreign students who managed to come, but 200 didn't. So 200 people that we could basically have admitted this year on a number of 1,500 candidates. So that it was still a big minority, a small minority of this that we admitted.
So you're saying you also felt left alone during these times of confusion,
Absolutely.
and there was no exact information. So I think Karl-Sander wants to
one thing,
thank you for your opinion.
I'm not here to protect our coalition partner. We have several issues with them. But if you say that the COVID crisis was used for a xenophobic agenda, then I might say that Taltech and Tallinn University used the crisis as a xenophobic agenda as well, because their first reaction was to ban foreign students. But I'm not saying that.
No, we were forced to ban foreign students.
For example, if we take 2 weeks back, then in Estonia we had 1 or 2 cases of COVID-19 per day. If you look at the past week or two, we have 20 cases a day. It's not that simple that I give you directions and you decide what to do. Because especially in the spring, everything is changed on a daily basis.
No, the directions were right at the end when they came, and it was already too late. But together with directions, you should have given some resources to apply these directions. That's the issue, simply, for me.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. I have a question for Anna as well, and then you can all also express your opinion. So you already talked about a little bit in the video. So what, and we also heard about it, of course, during Eero's presentation. So first of all, what might be the reasons why international students interested in studying abroad either choose or not choose Estonia? Did you have any arguments of your own? Did you have any other countries as an alternative?
Right. Thank you for your question, and good evening, everyone. Basically, I have selected Estonia as my destination for studies because it was mainly very easy to sponsor myself here as a student, so have a full-time job and pay for my own degree. And then, as we saw in the presentation, it was affordable cost of living, and it was a degree that interested me. And if you compare the price of my tuition to the other universities across the world, it's quite cheap. Filmmaking is not in any ways affordable. Yeah, and these were the main reasons why I considered Estonia, and frankly, I did not have any other countries on my list. I just knew that there's this school that is great to be in, so I applied and I got in. And if I may get back to the previous question, there's something that I feel has been miscommunicated about Tallinn University and what happened to international students. Tallinn University has never publicly accepted or denied the fact that they will or will not admit the international students, and as you have mentioned, they did, which is not entirely correct. And as you have mentioned, a lot of students were actually denied the possibility to arrive and continue their studies or actually start their studies. And it has never been addressed in media, which I feel like is a big issue in itself. And they basically went through the same procedure as Tallinn University did. So a lot of people received their conditional acceptance, then they have actually paid for their tuition, and then they were denied on the basis of coronavirus spread in the country that they come from.
So some more miscommunication and
Yes.
confusion. Thank you for the clarification. Maybe also same question to Ellery, since you know a lot about these issues. Why are the reasons why international students choose or not choose Estonia? The pros and the cons again.
I think if we talk about like European universities, and there was a question before from the audience, why is there a value of European student to us? There isn't actually, and that's what we see is that the part of answers that why they don't choose Estonia is actually that the European students have much more quality universities to choose from, let's say from UK, from Germany, from Holland. So that's the reason that we're not on the map. We're not really, like, we are on the map, but we're not there in the, top 10 for them. And, USA, basically, they have very competitive and very, very good universities. To choose from what is like the pro, I think definitely has already been mentioned, that we're a very safe country. The environment here is safe, except for a few incidents that already have happened against international students. Let's say in the media, there was, I think 2 weeks ago, a misfortunate that some extremists were actually beating up international students. I don't know, there was a conflict, and that's very messy. But besides that, it's a very safe country. And if we look at the background of where students come from, yeah, that's a very, very bad example. But actually, we're very acceptable if we look at the people. If we look at the politics, then maybe not so. Like the loudest politician that says that we don't want foreign students or international students or international workers. So I think to add to what Anna said, it's a safe environment overall. I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to have more extremist situations or not?
Sure. And the part where it's hard to find Estonian friends, of course.
Yeah. Actually, interviewing with one of the students who already graduated, who said that the social environment of being friends with Estonian students, I totally get that. If we look at Tartu, for example, my alumni, they're putting university students from outside of Europe or from outside of Estonia. Overall, they're putting into one dormitory. How is that going to help integrating people? Or you have maybe in a room or another room foreign students, and mostly they are Erasmus students. And if you have one bad experience with that student, definitely you will not speak or be friends with another because you have this assumption. But I think that already shows a lot about not only the government side, but the universities as well, that how they're treating their international students, how easy it is for them to actually integrate if everything is separate. Separate services, separate housing, separate I don't know, everyone, basically.
Very good point, yes. Daniela, do you have anything to add? So you
Yeah, and
both from
a separate curriculum for,
Yeah,
the,
exactly.
for the most, where we have English and Estonian curriculum. Yeah, and I wouldn't make this difference between European and non-European students. I mean, so what we look for at the universities is first of all excellency, because the only thing that matters for us is academic excellency, so it's merit of the students. So in the selection process, it doesn't matter where the students come from. So it does only matter whether they are good or not so good. So that. Yeah, I mean.
Why to choose or not to choose Estonia? Why did you come here in the first
Why
place?
Estonia? I mean, I came by chance, but so it's no reason. So I mean, no, I had friends, good friends here. So that's
So
the reason.
again, straight from the survey.
Yeah, but
peer-to-peer.
I didn't imagine that I will end up being a professor at the university when I came.
And
so
in
that it's-
Estonian.
Yeah,
So
and in Estonian.
Daniela
so
speaks
it's
excellent
anyway.
Estonian already.
So, but yes, for this division, I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult. So I've tried for years to break the barrier already between Russian-speaking students and Estonian-speaking students in my groups, and it's not easy at all. So that for international students, it's maybe even more difficult. And but I think yes, that this is a very good point. The dormitories, because the dormitories are the place where, I mean, real life is happening. So it would be a very good, I will suggest to the university authorities to mix up the dormitory, the people in the dormitory. But otherwise, of course, the language, I think it's very important. So to learn Estonian for foreign students, so that's the key. So to communicate, to integrate in the society, and also to the kind of souls of Estonian people. So if you want to get really close to an Estonian, you have to speak the language with them. So when you get really close, so I think that's an important issue.
Yeah, we'll come back to the language issue, definitely. That's another deeper question.
And then I can talk later, no worries.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience already? Can raise your hands. You can ask all the participants or just one in particular, of course.
Me, this one. Right, me again, Pierre Kuzik from Estonia, but I've been an international student for 6 years I think in 4 different countries. And I think that one of the most important things if we think about Estonia and international students is that we need to decide whether we want workers or we want people. So if we ask international students in or out, I think the question is like, what do we want from them when they finish their degrees? Are we okay as a society that they will stay here and build up their life? Or we want that they come here, get their education and then sort off? And I think that this is the fundamental question that Estonia, and that is very debatable right now, and kind of goes into a bigger discussion about what it means to be Estonian and what does global Estonia mean. But I think that when kind of going back to the topic of this event, I think as a society we first need to decide this. Is it a short-term thing, like a short-term commitment to those people, or are we in for the longer term?
It's a very good question. Alexander?
I'll take this one at first. I mean, I will shock you now, but I, as a conservative or whatever, think that the main goal actually should be that most of the people who come here stay here after graduation, but with a clause that it should be connected with the knowledge of, let's say, Estonian language or the capability of adjusting to life in Estonia. So let's say if you go back to the language question, then I think in 2014 there was a Baltic Research Institute research showed that foreign students can't find jobs due to poor language skills, poor social contacts, and poor networking. So in 2017 maybe Quality Agency found the same, and now from 2018 we have finally mandatory language courses for foreign students or new foreign curriculum. That's due to Isama's proposal, and back then we were labeled xenophobic as well. So that's natural for us, I think. And we also have Estonian language houses from 2017. I think it's language cafes, language courses. But the problem is that every foreign student I've had a conversation with about it hasn't heard of Estonian language houses, although they have like 4,000 students each year. And that's a problem. But if they know the language, perhaps maybe a test will solve the question, then definitely. The main goal in Estonia should be to bring in talent and to keep those here who are capable of adjusting to our life.
Okay, thank you. Ellery has an opinion as well.
I totally agree with the question because, and that's also a good question because in the end of this year, our current strategy will end and then we will have to decide what's next. For me personally, I don't mind that we are both expert and we have lots of specialists here, as Carlos said, who are going to stay. So both ways, we are educating people to go outside, promote our education, how well it is, how good it is, kind of like, people promoting us as well as people staying here, the smartest and the most best for Estonia. Concerning the comment of language, actually, we are, I know we are going to go there, but, international students actually want to learn Estonian. I've seen it firsthand. The problem is possibilities. We don't have enough places or even high enough courses to have Estonian language. So that's the problem. The problem isn't that they don't want, so they can't get to that.
Language courses in Estonian language houses are for free.
Yeah, but they're always full. There are so many people that are...
No.
Okay, well, you go to school and then you see. Then we'll talk more.
Okay, Anna has an opinion as well.
Yes, if I may answer your question, as a foreigner myself, and to me, a question of whether I will stay in Estonia after my graduation, which is in 2 years, it's fairly soon, is quite relevant. Before and during when I was moving to Estonia, it did occur to me that this country is welcoming and is looking forward for me to stay and develop my future here. But now that the bill and the proposal itself are a big conversation, it doesn't seem any longer that the country is welcoming and is looking forward to build, whatever system or structure that would allow me to stay or would guarantee that my stay will be comfortable. And if I narrow it down to, say, my specific degree, it's barely possible that I can make a future here in film industry without speaking Estonian. I do speak Russian, which is, say, coincidental privilege. And it did help me during my stay here, but for people who don't speak Russian or just have English as their tool, it's gonna be hard. And as already said, there are resources that will help you integrate into Estonian society. And I have friends from Ukraine and other countries who have learned Estonian and do speak it really well. And it always, of course, depends on the availability, and it depends on the wish of the foreigner themselves to integrate into the country and the society itself. But just as my opinion and perspective, it did seem welcoming, but it's not the case anymore.
Daniela?
Yeah, but I think it's very important this that if we are concerned about immigration, so the core of a very intelligent immigration policy would be to have foreign students stay after graduation. It's very clear they have already the contact with the country, they are already acquainted with the cultural norms, the social norms of the country, so it's the best kind of immigration we can have. They are skilled, qualified workforce and so on and so forth. So it's really important. For the language, I think, so what I don't like of language policy of a state in general is this kind of compulsory things. We should get there without forcing people. So. And it's difficult, I know, because there are a lot of opportunity on the job market without knowing Estonian. So, but if people understand that still they have more opportunity if they know Estonian, so that would be the key. And I think for the language courses, we have language courses a lot. But most of them, or many of them, not most of them, many of them are really boring. So we must get the foreign students there, not through this kind of folkloristic stuff, so which is the national bird of Estonia, so which is the national flower of Estonia, and so on and so forth. But through what they do, what they learn at the university, I know the BFM, for instance, the Baltic Film and Media School, is doing very well in this course of language and culture. They start from movies, so they show Estonian movies about nature, about culture, and then they discuss them with students, and they get the students there through their interests, and not this kind of I don't know, quite anachronistic idea of culture by someone there in the, language policy council or the ministries.
Okay, Karl-Sander, shortly, you want to
Not to shock you, but people by nature are lazy. Actually, they are uncomfortable. For example, Estonia has been a net migration country for the past 4 or 5 years, and most of the people who come here are coming from Ukraine or Russia to work or live. And let's face it, Tallinn has a 40% Russian-speaking population, and Tallinn is one of the only capitals in Europe where segregation is accelerating. And that's another small issue. And if you look at the same 10 countries Eero brought forward, then it's also yet again Ukraine, Russia, and also I would say it to any other country as well. If we have 800 Nigerians in Estonia and 400 are foreign students who are basically in between ages 20 or 40, they all live in the same dorm, then there is no integration. Because people associate with the people with similar interests, similar backgrounds, similar language, and to break that, it's not enough to invite someone to have a conversation. The state interest is to, let's say, force people to have to do it, to make them understand that it is necessary for their stay in the state. And that's completely normal because we're looking at the long-term perspective.
Okay, well,
yeah, but it has been a long-term perspective for 25 years, and as you said, the segregation is speeding up, so it's something went wrong in this kind of policy.
Something that surprised many people was that Estonia became a net migration country, actually. None of our scientists saw that coming, because if you look at Latvia or Lithuania, there's still people leaving, more people are leaving than coming in. And that has been a surprise, yes.
Thank you. We'll continue with the questions. I just have one personal comment. I agree that people are lazy most of the time, but it's also still about intrinsic motivation. I have personally very many friends, I can really say many or very many, either they have been students here or they are working for some of the most famous startups, which means they're studying or working only in English. They usually don't have an Estonian partner, and most of them have learned Estonian at an excellent level. Some of my friends, if they're watching, hi, some even within 7 months they can have really good conversations in Estonian. So, and again, they have no actual need, no pressure from the state, no, so to say, practical reason to do so. So I think learning a language is always very, very intrinsic motivation, and forcing someone to learn something usually has the opposite effect. So we'll continue that if we have the time. Let's have some questions from the audience.
With all due respect, if your only measure for social integration within Estonia is that of language, you are doomed to absolute and utter and complete failure. This is how the conservative parties within this country will lead to their own destruction. As a country, Estonia has dedicated itself to international business, to code, to technology. And the language of international business, the language of code, the language of technology is, quite frankly, not Estonian. So if you're going to sit up there and call me lazy because I came to Estonia at the age of 40 with a wife who was also Canadian, who also didn't speak the language, because I don't speak the language right now, you are not promoting this country and you are not promoting the interests of this country.
Just not to make sure, that was nothing personal, but people by nature associate with people who have the same, let's say, background qualities and all that. So, for example, 5 years ago, I worked for a sports betting company with offices in Austria, US, Philippines, and we had our international collective. What happened, the work language was English, but as soon as there was a break or stop, then, easy example, Russian speakers sat together, talked, Estonian speakers sat together, talked. Maybe it was a, let's say, the issue was way we adjusted or handled our work, but it's still an issue. And I'm not apologizing for Estonians. Language is a really big part of the national identity. That doesn't mean we should exclude everyone. But for example, in the workforce, we have exceptions for IT sectors and also people coming in from the EU, US, Japan. But in the long term, the language aspect and knowing the cultural background is important. Estonian context also history, which is a big part of our identity. And that's completely okay to assume that people who wish to stay here, if they don't speak the language, then at least they acknowledge that that is important.
Okay, any other comments? No. Let's take a few more questions from the audience.
Hi, Imar Kachikali. You already saw me in the video. I'm also a student representative of the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Tartu. Now, I also had to learn Estonian, and I'm very happy that I did, obviously. Kalasandar, this is also a question for you specifically. Thank you for being here also to represent the interests of your own party and I guess the coalition government as a whole. Now, some members of your own party have already expressed discontent at some private enterprises in Estonia whose employees are only apparently capable of speaking in English rather than Estonian. And I was wondering how a party such as yours, which has traditionally emphasized the lack of government interference with regards to private enterprises, would justify, if this law is passed by Parliament, this blatant interference by the government on the rights of private enterprise.
Sorry, you have to be more specific.
What I mean specifically is how it is possible that a law like this clearly interferes with the right of private enterprises to decide who they employ. So how would you respond to this? How do you justify this within, let's say, the philosophical framework of your own party?
So I'll bring you an example like this, that Estonia has always had a conservative migration policy. That's, if you want to blame someone, then you can blame my party. For example, we only accept, I think, we hand out 1,300 residency permits for people from third countries. And that's not interfering with someone's private, let's say, enterprise, but that's the option. We are assuming that we are capable of integrating is a bad word, but people who can come here and adjust without letting in too much. And the same bill which is now in process, I don't like it. I don't like most of it. We have taken some things out and we'll try to take out even more things, but I can't give you any promises right now.
Thank you. Is it okay if I ask another question?
Sure.
What do you think is the most effective, and this goes for everyone, I know Daniela's also learned to speak Estonian fluently. What is the most effective way for foreigners who come here to study Estonian? I myself am a linguist, so of course I have had this interest personally. But for someone in mathematics or, I don't know, political science, how do you tell them, like, oh, you should study Estonian for X, Y, Z reasons?
Really good. Helari?
I can refer from my experience of studying Russian, which is kind of, mandatory here, and I don't know it because I'm only learning it in classroom. I don't speak it, whereas my parents had to speak it or every day in the Soviet Union. So what I think is the most, but we already touched a little bit of the segregation and integration, is that I don't learn or I don't use the language outside of the classroom that much. I don't have practice. So I think the best way to learn Estonian is to stop segregation, more integration into everyday life, and not just mandatory classroom studies. That's what I think.
Definitely. Daniele?
Yeah, I will kind of contradict myself. Anyway, it's the most effective way is when you are forced, but not by the government, but by life, of course, when you cannot do otherwise, when speak one language. When I came, I mean, generally the environment was not really, so the foreign languages, it was Russian, so the choice was between Russian and Estonian, rather. English was kind of starting and very, very quickly, of course, but you could not speak English with a lot of people, and that was a very big motivator. But the other is curiosity. For you, as a linguist, of course, it's also curiosity. But I would, and here, so I kind of agree with Carl Sander. So I mean, it's not because, I mean, Estonian could be, for me, Estonian could be, it would be really nice if Estonia would be the lingua franca, so for people so living in Estonia. It is kind of dream, so, but I think it will be nice. But in order to get there, we must we must distinguish a bit between this Estonian as the identity of Estonian people, and that's of course completely legitimate, and Estonia as a means of communication for other people living here. So there are two different things, and when we teach Estonian, when we want Estonian to go into the masses, so to say, then we must take this approach, as Estonia is a means of communication so for the people living here in Estonia. So not this kind of identity stuff that it's for Estonians. So that's a bit of a contradiction that we have. We want to have all the people to learn Estonian, to speak Estonian, but on the other hand, Estonia is our core, so the core of our identities. And what about people who are not Estonian then? So it's I think it's the contradiction that you have, that the Estonian conservatives have, and you must solve it in order to have Estonian, so to get Estonian to the masses, really, included the Russian Estonians who live here. So.
It is a very complicated question, so thank you for giving your opinions. I would like to come back maybe to the legislation draft, the possible amendment. One of the claims that has been published is also that international students might become somehow radical if they're staying in Estonia but do not receive a position right away, a job that would meet their expectations, match what they studied, have a good salary. First of all, according to the statistics, it seems to be that most of the students staying here are from the IT sector, engineers, and they actually, first of all, these are the ones staying, and they actually do get positions that match their expectations and their skills and knowledge. So at first, as a first question, it seems to be a kind of a made-up problem from this. And the second question, is it not the case in all the world that you come straight out of the university and you never get a job right away that matches your salary and so on? So what are your, and why would these students need to radicalize? Are there any examples in Estonia that some of our students have become extremely radical at some point? This is a question to Carl Sander, but if you want to take it first, Anna.
Yeah, just felt like there's something I can share about this. I find issue with this statement, first of all, because there's no definition to what becoming radical means. What kind of limits of this word are we talking? Is this extremist action? Is this any political expressions? And I, as a person who comes from a country with an ongoing war conflict, would very much like to see a definition of that, especially when the government is referring to me as a subject and my friends who will come to Estonia next year because they were forced to cancel their arrival this year, and many other people. And the other thing that I was thinking about this statement is that it feels more like preventing a crime before it happens, which is some sort of, I think, a little bit of an extreme measure. You know, there's really no justification for doing that. It just feels really bizarre. And then as a person who is forcing my future employment and questions of where to put myself in this world, I see this issue from the perspective, if there's nowhere I can find myself in this country, I'll go somewhere else. And then if I study something very peculiar or specific that is like linguistics and maybe Estonian language, then there's always be a spot for you in the community that needs to be discovered and researched and studied. And then in more practical sectors like IT or film again that I'm doing, I'll be able to find myself anywhere in the world. So yeah, I very much do not agree with this.
So you don't plan to become radical?
No.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Does anyone know how the term radicalized youth from the third countries ended up in the bill? Any ideas?
Please enlighten us. But does anyone know?
Maybe Mark Helme tore it up during sleep, or? No.
Go on.
The answer is in Estonia we have a Kaitsepolitseiamet, which is I think Estonian Internal Security Agency or something like that.
Defense.
So kapo ühesõnaga eestlastele. The point is that each year kapo publishes a yearbook which basically talks about risks towards Russia or other national influences, maybe situations in Ukraine, etc. And for 2 years running, I think 2017 and 18, they had this a couple of page short description about the profiles of foreign students in Estonia. And they brought out, I think, Bangladesh, India and Iran maybe, as countries where there are signs of, let's say, polarizing radicalization amongst young people. And they assume that in the future there might be a possibility of that transmitting itself into Estonia. And we have an analog with David Cameron. If you have a book then on the record, you can read. He had a security briefing about Muslim youth radicalization, went to a press conference, said it out and got bashed openly. So I can't advocate for that radicalized youth argument because I haven't seen the reasoning behind it. It's just two pages in one book. But maybe, but it's not something. It's not something political. It's something that the organizations responsible for our security have brought up, and you should probably ask them. Ellery will go talk with the leader, right?
Exactly, Ellery. So, what are the actual dangers of international students in our country? Do you have any bad examples besides the facts? That you mentioned happened a few weeks ago?
Like that was not from international students. That was against international students.
Exactly.
So I see the problem like two ways. The two ways is that the radicalization, or not let's use the word, but the feeling or the emotions behind current like Estonian people is very against people of outside of Estonia currently. That's what I'm just seeing everywhere. Basically, we're talking about a foreigner, international student. If it's somebody from a strange country, we hear some media stories. We hear
that strange. You mean non-EU, for example?
Yeah. So they have made up fears. The media, the politicians. I think this is made up fears. And if we're concerned with the bill, it's not dealing with the problem. We're talking about English, where we're talking about the language, we're talking about segregation, integration, but the bill is not actually solving any of those problems. I don't see, because we're talking about a governmental process or regulations, but the means are in the system itself, in the higher education institutions, the schools, the different organizations in there. There are so many different ways to solve these problems. I don't see any radicalization, sorry. I have not met any international student who has made a harmful comment towards me or any way possible made some example of bad. I see them from Estonians. That's the thing I see.
Okay, Daniela, you have also straight access to the source.
I mean, now it's good. Now it's very good to know that it is in the Capo yearbook, because there are a lot of funny things in the Capo yearbooks always, so that it's apparently it's no problem.
It's Capo's job
if
to
it
be
was there, then it is no problem, I think, because really a lot of weird things. No, I don't understand these relations between low salaries and radicalization. I mean, I consider myself radical in many things, but I have a very good salary, so that I don't see the relation. But what I think is important is that many of foreign students, particularly from third countries, what they experience here in Estonia, for many of them, is, and this is really important for me, is freedom and democracy, the possibility of freedom and democracy. It was very nice how this Vietnamese student was saying that, oh, you know, in our country is also hierarchical, and so here you can speak, you can talk with a professor really as an equal. And that is a very important experience, particularly for people who are in contact or planning to going back to these countries. So this experience is important, and I think it is something that Estonia is offering also to the foreign students, and this is really a good feeling for many of them. They can discuss in classes issues about their own countries, which are very often not very democratic and were really big problems. Freely, and that's a good feeling. I have seen it many times. As for them, is there any danger? So the only danger that I see is with the university. So we should avoid the situation where entire fields of studies become dependent on tuition fees by international students. That's a really danger. So we have seen it in the past. So it was very good to close this university, for instance, the European University. What was it in Tallinn, which kind of profit by tuition fees by foreign students, were no selection at all. So taking other people, because we were living only of this money. So we must avoid this situation, but the only way that we have to avoid the situation is to finish this chronicle funding of programs in Estonian University. And this is once again a governmental decision. So we must increase a lot the funds for research, for higher education. That's the only way to keep education in Estonia at a high level. And this is not the danger, not foreign students. The danger is with underfunding or chronic underfunding of Estonian higher education.
Okay, thank you. We'll also come back really quickly to the case of the tuition fees and money, but to finish this one, besides the Capo that needs to know all the dangers that are happening in the world, basically, are there any actual reasons to assume that by this government that the students will radicalize? Where does this claim?
As I said,
do you have any kind of actual?
I can't defend it because it's probably we don't have any examples in Estonia. What we can say about the profile is that that also includes Estonians, that people who are, let's say, in their 20s or 30s, have no social networks or outlets, or have more potential to radicalize. That we saw 5 years ago with ISIS, I think, towards Western Europe, but I'm not seeing any signs of that today in Estonia. But the question is that do some people abuse the studying system? Yeah, definitely. We had 160 people sent out by the police department last year due to they are not staying here for the purpose of their residency, which was studying. So yeah, we have issues.
Okay,
100 people
160 out of 5,000.
I'm sorry, I have to ask, is 100 people overall an issue if they've already been dealt with?
well, if there's someone saying that they're in the country for one reason and they're here for another reason, then yeah, that's an issue. And for example, what's my issue with the student organization right now is, I think we met in June, or was it in March? I can't remember. June maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. And then you said that this bill won't solve any issues. And then we talked for an hour. And then I said, if you have any counter proposals or what will help to solve these issues, then please send them to us, discuss amongst yourselves, and we will give our best so that they will be in the bill. So far it's September and we have had 0 propositions, and instead of that me and a few other of our parliamentary members are discussing maybe to bring in the Estonian language part even more.
Because all the regulations set in this bill are not worthwhile even commenting. That's why we don't actually we don't feel that we need a separate bill for this. This problem is solved with the institutions currently accepting international students. This is solved with the police and border guard who are already doing their job. I don't see that a separate bill is actually solving a problem.
For example, wait. For example, all of us just sat here talked that language skills is an issue, social context is an issue, and outlets in the workforce are an issue. So all those things need separate bills. For example, that 2018 language courses needed separate bills and contracts with each university in Estonia. So far, with terms of this limited work time, we threw that out because that won't help any foreign student in Estonia. And same with the average salary gap. But there are issues we need to deal with, and they need bills, concrete laws to make things better.
Okay, we're starting to run out of time. Just a few quick questions as well. So, first of all, Eero already talked about all the social as well as financial impact the international students are bringing. There, one of the articles we published today by Marlene Allemann, I hope you're here, has also the exact data of how much the universities would be losing on tuition fees if they don't accept international students from third countries and so on. So where does the makers of this legislation draft see where the money is coming from? Currently, what are the alternative sources, income sources for the universities? Where should this money come from? Because currently it looks like that the Estonians would have to pay for that. Yes, sorry, just...
Ever since Isamaa made, let's say, Estonian curriculums free for all Estonian students and foreigners as well, that was in 2012, I think, then all the coalitions after that have been to blame for underfunding our higher and university education. So we take that and we try to make it better. But to argue that this will lead to a huge gap in the university's budget, well, I think Tartu University's budget is about 200 million euros maybe. And the tuition fees count to, maybe the losses are 2.5 million. And nearly 30% of foreign students learn without paying tuition fees. And same with this basically support for foreign students whose salary isn't high enough. I don't know how you call it, but the point is that that cost 1.2 million last year. So basically, by paying for supporting foreign students financially, that means that that's 1.2 million, and we're talking about maybe Tartu University will lose 2 million in a 200 million budget. I'm sure STEP will come and help, but it's a marginal sum as of today.
Elari?
We're not only actually talking about university's budget, Eero, and also the International Student Parliament said clearly 35 million, and that's a conservative. That's a conservative calculation.
No,
35 million is an economic impact that will every year come to Estonia as an economic, in taxes and everything, and 10 million per, taxes of working. That's a big sum of money that we don't have anywhere to lose. And if we look into the coronavirus pandemic, which has already impacted our most important tourism, like parts and different businesses, then I think that's a loss. If you look at the university, maybe, yeah, that's 2 million. That's a small number for you. But overall, as an economic impact, that's a loss.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I don't want any lesser foreign students coming to Estonia. I want them to stay here and support
Not
our
to
economy. But the question is that can anyone tell me here today that after, let's say, taking 4 or 5 points the ministry has proposed, how many less students would arrive in Estonia? I haven't seen anyone come out with a number. I really doubt that
it's because they will
100%.
not arrive, and you will not be able to count the number.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the audience in between?
Good evening.
We'll wrap it up very quickly. Sorry, from the back first.
Okay. Good evening. At first, I have 2 questions. One of is short technical. Mr. Carsander, at first, can I learn that is that proposal is for future students, or does it have an retroactive effect for even in the Estonia who didn't graduate yet?
If it would be passed in the parliament, then it would have a future effect.
Okay, so no retroactive effect. Okay. Secondly, actually, I agree within the language situation as a foreigner, because in Germany, exactly what do you want happens even after from the airport. Maybe the second destination is a language course in Germany, for example.
I agree.
Plus, all right, but if there's no Nigerian or Bangladeshis are in here now, I'll make some addition for the group you called lazy. Maybe EU country people, these are, because if you think still from German or French, Estonian people has too much respect for them. Even my flatmate is even Estonian, trying to move to Germany. But the thing is, if you think that German or French people learn Estonian, or Estonian people have been learning German and French plus, and how can I say, it's like that also, yeah.
Yeah, no, yet again, with the lazy part, it wasn't anything personal, and I might have went too far with that, because it seems to bother you, everyone.
Yeah.
So I apologize sincerely.
Yeah. Because the reason is actually these EU people are coming to Estonia within an ID card. However, these third world countries have already too much, qualifications. Sufficient, they have to be even financed themselves, etc. So they cannot directly go in a vacation to their home countries as well. So they can be more dependent than the EU citizens in Estonia if they want, and if you want also. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the audience? Then we'll have the final question. Yeah, sorry. Come right up.
So, hello, I am Marlene. I wrote this article you were
Thank you, Marlene.
referring to. And actually, I think I have half comment, half rhetorical question to Garsander. That, yeah, in the article I wrote, I also said the term of radicalization came from the Capo yearbook. But the question is that I also looked through the book, and there is nothing that they are referring to. So my rhetorical question is, do you think it's a good policy making if you are just based on the Capo yearbook and you don't have any other service, questionnaires, whatever, that are referring to the fact that students with low income can radicalize? I can so easily say then that Estonian students with low income can radicalize as well, and that's nonsense, I think. Thank you.
I would be the first one to say that it's bad policy, but the weird thing is with the Estonian legislation is that, let's say, this bill comes from the government to the parliament, and then we take out some sort of point which obstructs foreign students staying in Estonia after graduation. Then even after that, the bill would have still that magical word radicalization, because you can't change the bills. Seletuskiri, keegi teab, kuidas öelda?
Explanation.
The explanation going with the bill, you can't change that in the parliament. That comes from the government. which is insane. I think it's bad policy. I haven't seen any signs of that yet, but the reasoning behind it you have to ask Capo, not me.
Okay, again, for those of you, very shortly, Marlene published a really good article in Estonian about this. So within our team, we very quickly, as a media partner, Estonian World, we translated Marlene's article into English, and we posted it in the afternoon under our event. So if you want to read through her arguments one more time, you can do that later. We have one question here in the front.
It's
again.
just a really short question. You've
Sure.
seemed quite smug, and you've told everyone they were quite lazy. I'm wondering how many people voted for you specifically in the last election?
In the parliamentary, 99. So you can. That's not a lot. But
Voted for you?
Yeah. That's.
Yeah, I mean it's good, but I mean.
Let's not go personal.
I think that Carl Sander is right in this point. That let us laziness aside. Everyone can say something as it is, but the fact that someone living in a country could feel some curiosity and wish to learn the language, then I think it's quite normal. So, and I would also kind of suppose that it is the case in the majority of cases. Of course, in our words, it is possible to live only with English everywhere, mostly, also in Estonia. But I think if you are living for a long time in a place, then yeah, I mean, at a certain point you feel this need, and I think there's nothing strange in not forcing the people to feel this need, but to expect that the people at some point feel this need. So to let's say in a more kind of diplomatic way.
Okay. Thank you. Let's have our final words then. So maybe my final question, you can also express again your so to say conclusion from this event. What might be the future vision of Estonia if a student from outside of EU, like Anna said, might not prefer to come to Estonia? What do we have to lose here?
So you started with 10 years ago we had 900 foreign students. Right now we have 5,500.
And a really great social, financial impact. Estonia is known in the world.
And that's positive, but Estonia would, that won't happen, but Estonia wouldn't be lost. It would be still a country, but I think a poorer country in that sense. And I hope that we have foreign students in the future as well.
Any other comments?
And thank you for having me, thanks for tolerating me, and thanks Daniel.
Thank you, Carl Sander. Elari.
So the problem with loss is not only looking at the numbers, but the people. I think we are only focusing on what's the well, everyone wants an explanation or an argument with the numbers, but let's look at the people. International students are so different, so wonderful, and I cannot, especially I think you as well, cannot look at them as a whole group of one just very, very sane people, but they are so much different. We have seen already different backgrounds of business, e-governance, and so on and so on. So the real loss for me is smart, intelligent, impactful people that we're going to lose. A lot of students, the number of whole students is actually in a loss, 45,000, and it's dropping. And if we're losing another more specialists that we're actually needing in the next 10 years, we need about, 10,000 specialists in the public sector, and we don't have it from our Estonian students. Where is that? Where are those people coming from? So I think that's a loss.
Thank you. Daniela, any last words?
Yeah, I think it's not only an economics or a demographic question. They are very important questions, but it is also a fundamental part of higher education. So a fundamental part of higher education is the experience of cultural and linguistical diversity. The fact that when you go to the university, you can hear many different languages, you can discuss issues in many different languages with native speakers of many different languages who knows the situation in many different parts of the world. It is a fundamental experience for any university students, and unfortunately Estonian students do not use the Erasmus possibilities that they have. It's a really tiny minority of Estonian students who is going abroad for a semester because of work, because of family, and so on and so forth. So that they don't have this opportunity so to know, to experience this abroad, so that we must bring it here, so that we have to have this a critical mass of international students at our universities. And I think what we will lose, what we would lose, it would mean to provincialize. So it would be the best way to provincialize Estonians by sending our foreign students away. So I think, and I think we all agree on this. So it's not an issue of whether in or out. We all agree on in. We disagree maybe at some point on how. So
I hope so. Okay, and Anna, thank you, Daniela, and thank you, Anna, as well. And I do hope you will be staying in Estonia after your studies. What do you think Estonia has to lose? Any last words?
It's hard to elaborate on this question being in my position. I think like Ellery already said, it's intelligence, it's experience, like Daniela said, and I think to add something that someone hasn't said yet, international students raise universities' compatibility, if I'm not wrong, and compatibility always equals income and then ranking and status and obviously, worldwide recognition, which I might be wrong, but I assume that's something that every university strives to be a worldly renowned institution, to have graduates like BFM does that are listed on the Oscar short list, which happened quite recently, and it's something that would have been lost if it hadn't been for international students.
Okay, thank you everyone for participating. We're just a little bit over the planned time. Thank you everyone for coming as well. So first of all, a great applause to the participants. So if the corona allows, we will have more events coming. It's a difficult year to plan, but please follow us on Facebook. We have both Astonishing Evenings as well as a daughter project called, what's it called? Astonishing Life. So you can follow us. We will always put all the updates into Facebook. And thank you again, most of all, to our partners this time, media partners, Estonian World, and also Postimees, as well as the, I keep forgetting it, Estonian Federation of Estonian Student Unions. You've been a really great team to work with. A big applause to all our partners. And please welcome our whole team on the stage. All of our events are always great teamwork. Take a lot of brainstorming, and as always, you can always talk to us and write to us. So please, Silver, Nela, and Lene as well. Yeah. So also Jonathan, Triin, anyone I'm missing, and Ellery from AUL is the easier. Our great partners for this event who helped to organize it. So thank you. Yeah. Sorry, one photo. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So we hope to come back. We have, with our daughter project, some smaller events, and most of the Astonishing Evenings events we will try to keep doing in this club of different rooms. And I almost forgot, our most important partner is Telliskivi Creative City, who is always supporting us. Thank you.
So you're studying at the BFM?
Yes,
Ah, okay. Good.
AV Media.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Usually we have a very informal event with wine, so our team is going to Kivi Babarkarit, just across the street. If you want to join us for a drink, you're more than welcome, if they have enough space.